Welcome back to Heartland Mamas.
I'm Murri Briel,
I'm Heidi Henry,
and we are coming to you with progressive voices from the
edge
edge.
of the Great Red Divide.
Thanks for tuning in again. We have some exciting news. We would like to thank our producer, Christian Henry, for setting this up. We now have a real camera, and
Better
he's
sound.
awesome.
And
So thank you, Chris.
this is actually, that's my son, and this is actually the studio he used to help put himself through college recording video gaming tutorials.
See? Well, thank you, Chris, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Let us know what you think about the new visuals, and that would be great.
And the new sound, and hopefully this will sound better than what we have been doing.
So today we're going to get really deep on an issue.
Yeah.
You know the old expression, there's three things that you never talk about. You never talk about sex, politics, or religion at a party or in polite company or dinner.
I'm not supposed to do that?
No, you're never supposed to do that. I was raised with a very good little Irish farm mother, Irish Catholic farm mother. And those were things we were never supposed to talk about.
Well, my mother would tell you that the reason that you're told not to talk about that stuff is to keep people apart, to keep people from discussing things that are important to society and to the community.
See, and the reason that my mom would say to do that is because you wouldn't want your ultimate responsibility is to be polite.
My mom would get in there and mix it up.
No. Well, when my mom got older, she would. Boy,
Yeah.
She's a lot different than she was early on. But
yeah, my mother was
my mom hassled a priest for a petition signature.
Listen,
She did.
I got into a fight with the bishop one time in the basement of our church.
So on that is the reason we are going to talk about religion and religion's influence on politics,
Yeah.
on American society.
On policy.
We feel so much. This is LGBTQ month, Pride Month. We support that 1,000,000%. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed is that on Twitter, there's so much more hateful rhetoric about coming from priests and pastors.
Okay, and I'm going to have to clarify.
Politicians.
That is some priests and some pastors and some politicians, because I was raised in the Episcopal Church. And, and I always talk about the two men that had a lot of influence on my life when I was in high school, junior high and high school. And both of them were gay, but in my family, my mother would say, we just never questioned it. It was just people were as God made them, and that's exactly how my mother would put it. It was, you didn't question that somebody was gay or straight. It was just how God made them. So we never really thought about that. And I think that's part of being raised in the Episcopal Church and by my very enlightened parents, that, people are all different. My mother would say if we were all the same, we'd get bored with one another. So we're supposed to be different. And I had two, in the Episcopal Church, you're baptized as a baby, and then about 11, 12, junior high, you go through confirmation, and you go through this exploratory thing where you learn about other religions and other denominations, and you find out how God speaks best to you. And they're hoping you'll find that it's in the Episcopal Church, but it may be somewhere else.
So incredibly cool. It would have been very different in the Catholic Church. You didn't do that. I was invited to, a friend of mine's dad was a pastor at the Church of the Nazarene, and I was invited to the youth nights, and I was invited to, oh no, is exactly right. I was not allowed to go by any stretch because it's not Catholic. So growing up in my faith, it was, if it's not Catholic, it's not. It doesn't exist. It's not valid. It's Satan.
Really?
It's Satan. If it's not Catholic,
Oh.
It's Satan. Irish Catholic, very different from regular Catholic. For all you mix out there, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, and see, I remember going to the Church of the Nazarene as part of my confirmation, and they were speaking in tongues, and I'd never heard that before. And to me, that felt...
Oh, come on. Our Mass was in Latin until I was in junior high. So tongues would have 3/4 of the parish knocked out.
It was just different than what I had experienced, but we went to so many really cool things. We went to a synagogue that was right along the Lake Michigan on a terrible windy day, big waves crashing against the building, and the Baha'i temple, which is beautiful. And
Oh, that is very
we went to a Hindu
beautiful.
temple, also on the North Shore of Chicago back, and this was back in the 70s. But what I was getting to is the person who taught my confirmation, my mentor, was a gay man. I never even thought about it then. I mean, it never occurred to me. I just knew him as a priest. And later on in high school, um, I started hearing rhetoric about people being gay and that being bad. And I thought, well, why is that bad? It's just how they are, just how, it's why I have brown hair. Well, it's turning gray now, but,
Let's not
but,
talk about gray hair.
yeah, but, to me, that was just as simple as it's supposed to be. That's how I was raised, and that's the church, the denomination I was raised in. So in high school, I was lucky enough to have a humanities teacher, who was also gay, and he gave extra credit in the public school system for reading the Bible cover to cover, and for doing work on different translations and different meanings. So it was not in his class, but as extra credit. I discovered that so many times when we hear people saying horrible things about gay people, it's always something about Leviticus, which, if you do your research, like my teacher had me do, which he didn't tell me specifically this, but I discovered it. Leviticus is a book of Hebrew law that was added to the Bible. It wasn't originally part of the Bible, but it was written in Hebrew and somehow added around the 5th century. And in Leviticus, they tell you not to eat shellfish. Okay, no bottom feeders, no pork.
Yeah. Pulp Fiction, Leviticus.
Right.
Yeah. See, again, raised Catholic, we were given Biblelettes. Little 30 pages of the songs we were to sing.
Yeah.
The hymns we were to amen. And the one reading, 2 reading, and gospel. That was it. It was not encouraged to take it home. We had our
Really?
Biblelettes. Yeah. No.
Wow.
So, and you grew up in a suburb. You grew up in a more urban setting.
Yeah.
I grew up out here in the rural environment. So it's so interesting to hear how much more open the people that you were around were than, say, the people that I was around.
And we always, when my family gets together and we talk about race relations back in the 60s and 70s when I lived in Elmhurst and Glen Ellen, all the people of color that lived in Elmhurst and Glen Ellen could buy, they were way wealthier than we were. And they were like pillars of the community, and, huge corporate people and lawyers and publishers and stuff. And then you'd see on the news problems in the inner city, and we couldn't, as kids, couldn't even wrap our head around it because it was so different than Dr. Lewis that lived up the street from us. And we were like, how does that work? But they were like huge sports figures, like the people you'd see on TV.
See, I think that you growing up in a more urban environment gave your family the option to choose a faith that was more open and idealistic. Growing up here, there was nothing. There is the Catholic Church.
There's an Episcopal church in downtown Ottawa.
Yeah,
we're
but
members.
but I'm talking 40 years ago, 30 years ago. It was a very different
type of
environment.
Right, and religion has always been used to control the narrative, and Christianity especially. And I think
because of our Western civilization mantra, which is Christianity,
and manifest destiny, and all the things that
destiny.
and some of my relatives, I'm Episcopalian, which is Church of England, which is responsible for a lot of the early colonization. But part of my family also came over here as Quakers to escape the Church of England and settled Rhode Island. So I always wonder if I'm conflicted because of that.
But, speaking of that, we think about how so many people jump to the idea and hold to the idea that we separate church and state.
We don't.
It's impossible to separate church and state.
I know. It's hard.
Even as much as we can, but we need to be active and do as much as we can to keep it out. Right. And so some of the things that we need to discuss are how churches took power, and how when that really started to get a foothold into the presidency, into the national political spotlight.
Well, and I think you can go clear back to the beginning of our country with that.
Absolutely,
You know.
absolutely.
But I'd like to discuss more of the modern age, more of the last century and into this century, if you don't mind, so that we can keep on, because you know me, I can go into the weeds on religious history.
Right,
and,
right.
And
I
I can go forever. And the thing is that it's bad because I'm not a know-it-all, but
she knows a lot about
But I
God.
love this subject, and the fact that, you know, right now you'd have to smite me if we were going by Leviticus because I'm wearing mixed fibers. And my son was just here and he shaved, so you'd have to stone him or something. I don't remember exactly.
See, being Catholic, we never had to read Leviticus. This is like,
Really? You never had to do Old Testament stuff?
No. Like I said, it was literally a paragraph. I mean, Mass was kneel, sit, stand, kneel, stand, sit, kneel, stand.
Yeah.
Eat, communion.
Yeah.
Sit, kneel, stand, 35 minutes tops, in and out. It was all about the
Really?
ritual. It was about, Bears games, we never had a sermon. Cold weather, we never had a sermon.
Oh, my.
Half the time, there was never a gospel.
Really?
Well, there was a gospel reading, but a homily is what we call it in the Catholic Church.
Right.
So I don't know where it is. But yeah, it was no, heck no. We could set our watches, 35, 40 if it was a long one.
You mean you don't sing in the hymnal every verse in a hymn? I mean,
oh no, we have little refrains that are like 2 stanzas long.
Okay, now granted, I've only been to a couple of Roman Catholic services in my life.
I got the hookup. I think I remember. This is all.
We'll pick an obscure hymn and sing every verse.
Okay, no, that's only that was only on like Saturday night when the singers got a hold of the choir balcony, and holiday masses, maybe 9:30 they could get a group going, but yeah, no. Gregorian chant was as big as it got. All right, we still Gregorian chanted.
I love Gregorian chants.
Seriously, it's freaky when you're a kid.
Oh, really?
It's creepy. You're in this giant monolith of a building, all made of marble and stained glass, and it's like 15 stories high, and it's so imposing.
Are so incredible.
And you've got the incense going, right?
Yeah.
And you've got the candles.
Right.
Well, if you have a very vivid imagination like Stephen King, like I did as a young child,
no way.
It was terrifying.
Well, okay, so...
And it's dark, and it's incense and robes, and you feel like you're in a druid movie, like legitimately. And as a kid, that's terrifying. You're like, what the hell is going on?
We would do stuff like that in the Episcopal Church, which you realize is Catholic, but it's Anglican Catholic, English Catholic.
Yeah,
so it's all of the Catholic, none of the guilt, right? So,
nice.
I
kind of got hosed on growing up a certain religion, man.
Well, and see, to me, it's like Gregorian chants and incense and candlelight. It's so...
I love it, but...
Yeah, it's empowering for me.
But here's the thing, is that our church was ritualistic. Certain religions and certain churches
Episcopalians
adhere very strongly to the tradition of ritual.
That is the Episcopal Church.
That's a part of,
we do
the basic part of their faith.
Stand, sit, kneel, stand, sit, kneel.
So, and then that... Now your church is one that encourages dialogue and wants to develop a relationship, an independent relationship with God. They do not talk about that in the Catholic Church.
Oh.
The only way you're supposed to get God is through the priest.
Really?
Yeah, you say your rosaries if you want God, but you pray to the saints. We are never taught to talk directly to God.
Really?
We are taught to talk to Jesus, Mary, the saints.
Because
we need an intermediary to talk to the big guy, which is
Well, see,
I'm going to be smited. If this place goes up, please know it was not a terror attack. It was the Almighty. Because I'm going up and down. My hand cart's decorated already.
Is it a hand basket or a hand cart?
It's you're right. It's a hand basket.
We just had different experiences growing up. And like you said, it is different out here because where I grew up in Glen Ellen, at St. Barnabas, we had high church, which was considered low church there. but we had a lot of stuff sung in Latin, and we, a lot of bells and smells and all of that stuff. And then we came out here. I'll never forget the first time I decided to go to church in shorts, and I was perfectly comfortable in my church. And when I would go to a horse show, it wasn't uncommon for me to pull up on the street, on Lafayette Street in Ottawa, with my trailer and my truck and go to church.
See,
It still happens.
I'm telling you, even the farmers would
Yeah.
get dressed up. They'd put their khakis on. They'd come in from the
I
fields.
used
They'd
to,
put
yeah.
their khakis on. They'd be dressed up. You didn't wear jeans. But as much as we love these stories,
Sorry.
I'm sure you're delighted by our stories. We do need to talk about why religion has such an impact in today's society, and particularly the policies that get made.
Right.
And it goes back, as Heidi was saying, to when her family, the Church of England, came over and settled here and then escaped to Rhode Island to form the Episcopal.
There was two different parts of the family. The one part came to Virginia Colony, and the other one went to
Okay, so,
Rhode Island.
but it goes back that far.
Yeah.
We tend to think that we were founded on a nation we wanted religious freedom. That is why people came, but it wasn't why the average person came.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily why, the families came. It was because the church told them to come. A church established a lot of these colonies. Individual churches
Right.
from Europe established these colonies so that they could get a foothold in.
Right.
Which pushes the manifest destiny argument and then says that our society was created with that Western Judeo-Christian ideology. So everything we do is touched with that.
Well, most of our law is based on the Ten Commandments, right? So, and you can, it starts there and then goes out. And those aren't bad laws to live by.
They're
They're
pretty
not
good.
stealing
I'm
and
good
not
with
killing,
Yeah, not,
pretty big,
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean,
Don't
sometimes,
covet other people because that ends up bad.
I don't know, my one neighbor's got a really nice horse trailer.
Shush. She didn't say that. I'm trying to prevent the smiting.
Yeah.
It's coming.
No, I really didn't covet it because I know it probably has a big payment with it. But the thing is that going into the modern era, even when I was in high school, Jimmy Carter, who's a very devout Christian, and I know that this is a little more modern than what we had talked about with Eisenhower and Truman before, off camera, but when Reagan came in, Jimmy Carter had worked so hard to make all people of any faith or even non-faith feel welcome in this country.
Even though he was a very religious
He's very
and very
devout.
devout, he put that aside. Did it alter the way that he governed? Yeah. Did it have an influence on how he governed? Yes, but he never put those beliefs out onto someone else.
No,
And Kennedy was the same way.
Yes.
Kennedy pushed very hard to incorporate all religions, all faiths.
Well, and because I told you,
coming off of Truman and Eisenhower.
And JFK came in, and I remember, and I was a toddler when he was elected. My parents, not being Roman Catholic, were worried that the Pope would be running our country.
And that was a huge, that was a big thing. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And that was a part of what influenced him to make sure he was so independent from the Catholic Church.
Right.
To push that. So then Carter did the same, and then we go, Nixon. Of course, Nixon was a
Mess.
Nixon was actually, his parents were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, they were Jehovah's
Or
Witnesses.
the precursor to Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
Which, that explains a lot.
Well, it does.
I don't mean that in a bad way, kind of. Okay. All right, let's go on.
Okay.
Anyway, so as we move into the modern...
Well, so when I was coming of age, it was when Reagan was going into office, and I remember having very heated discussions with my parents about Reagan versus Carter. Okay, Carter spoke to that holistic.
I had those too. My parents were all Carter.
Yeah.
But I remember almost getting thrown out of 4th grade because I was arguing about Star Wars and why it was bad.
Oh, Star Wars? Oh, you mean the missile defense thing?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I have a funny anecdote about that. There was money that disappeared, and we don't know where it went. So, as a country, we have no idea where that money went.
Oh, yeah.
But when Reagan came in, he melded religion back into our policy again.
He did. And how Truman got a foothold in it was actually because of religions. Religions were terrified of communism and
Right.
terrified of the spread of communism
Right.
because there was no faith
No.
There was no place for faith in communism.
Well, it was forbidden.
So they actually connected with different churches, the Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, the Lutherans, the Methodists, the Jewish Church.
Yeah.
They connected powerful influence in order...
And included the Muslims.
And created a narrative that godlessness was evil. And
godless commies.
Godless commies. And
we were all raised with godless commies.
Oh, God, yeah. But the communists were going to, and it wasn't even that they were going to take over sections of the world. It was terrifying that there was no religion there. So they got together and formed this coalition, and Truman tried to harness it, and that didn't go as well as it did for Eisenhower.
Right.
Then we had the break where we pushed it away, and we became more secular as a society.
Right.
And so it is cyclical, but they managed to create that narrative of the Cold War, communist, godless, and our politicians adopted that rhetoric. Our politicians adopted that ideology. That's why Reagan, after Carter, was able to come in and meld religion back in, because of the fear of Gorbachev and the wall and Cuba and communism. Yeah. So they utilize religion as a weapon.
Mm-hmm. They weaponized. Reagan definitely weaponized religion. Definitely. And one of these days we're going to have to do a show on how much I hate Ronald Reagan. So.
That would probably be like a 6-hour show, because I could go forever.
But you want to talk about a godless commie, under the wearing sheep's clothing. He was a horrible person. But, and I know some of you really love him, but, come sit next to me and I'll tell you why you shouldn't. But with him weaponizing it, and then we go into H. Bush, who only lasted one term, who arguably was running the last several years of Ronald Reagan's term because of Ronald Reagan's dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And then H. Bush Bush the first only lasted one term. And then we had Clinton come in. And they hated him so much that we gave birth to the moral majority. And I want you to think about those people that ran the moral majority.
What I have to say, though, is that if you go back to the Articles of Confederation,
right.
and actually I'm not sure if it's the Articles of Confederation or the First Amendment. Oh, no, I'm going to get flamed for this, I'm sure. But it was said that there shall be no purity tests, religious purity tests for politicians. I think the framers of the Constitution got that one wrong, because there should be some test. I don't care if you are a godless commie, or you're Donald Trump, or you're whoever.
Wait, don't those two go together? No.
Nah, I don't know.
Just kidding.
I'm good with godless. Him, I'm not even good with. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is that you've got these... I totally just lost my train of thought.
Well, you're talking about a religious purity test, and you and I, both having run for office, both had to answer those questions.
So I don't care if you are Donald Trump or Genghis Khan, right? I don't care who you are, but be who you are and say who you are. Don't hide behind this religion. And those religions should not promote their ideologies onto people that can't walk the walk. That's my biggest thing. Growing up Catholic, it was huge, was hypocrisy. You can do whatever you want as long as you're like, oh, darn, I shouldn't have done that. Father, I have sinned, 2 Hail Marys and an Our Father. Okay. And that was a bad punishment. So, it feels that way to me.
Well, I remember growing up, one of my best friends was Roman Catholic. And anytime she would, I don't care what it was, if she would get ice cream on her dress or skin her knees, because her dad had a huge problem with that for some reason, or whatever it was, step on the flower bed, he would tell her, he'd point at her and he'd say, God's going to get you. And she would just be terrified. And I'd think, And what is he going to do? Take the ice cream stain out of your dress? I don't know.
So you guys are really lucky because this topic is so broad.
It is
We are
huge.
actually going to sign off for right now.
Are we?
And then we are going to come right back, so you'll have 2 podcasts to listen to tomorrow as a bonus.
Yeah.
You can split them up and keep them, do one on Friday maybe. But we're so riveting, we know you want to know what we mean. From Reagan to now and the influence of religion on politics.
Well, the thing is
like our button, subscribe,
Yeah.
please. We're on YouTube. We now have real cameras and stuff.
Yeah, we have a website.
heartlandmamas.com.
We appreciate the donations that we've gotten.
Thank you. The
It's so
donations are
nice of you.
awesome.
It helps us get a decent camera.
And it makes us have to pay. We have to pay for everything, so that's
Yeah.
really, really nice. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. But like us, share with your friends, Facebook, Twitter, Heartland Mamas, heartlandmamas.com. And if you can click on the very next episode, and it'll be right here.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
See you in a little bit. Did you turn off the camera? No? Hang on. You gotta go over here.
Oh, you do it. I'm
Okay.
afraid.
Don't be afraid.
I'm
We're
afraid.
working on this new equipment, and we don't know how it works yet.
Technology doesn't like me.
Okay, wait.
I'm really bad at that. I'm like my mother. I can't even manage to,
I'm so sorry.
All right, bye.